welcome to the Trailer Island podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm joined by
Matthew.
And Steve.
My wonderful co-host. How are we all today?
We're lovely. We're doing well.
Yeah, this is a really, really nice March day.
You've got your months mixed up, mate. I don't know what's going on.
It's a really, really nice current month insert here day.
Yeah, to
Thanks,
be
Steve.
confirmed.
That's fantastic. So, gentlemen, we are here to talk about films and their trailers, and we are on the Trailer Island podcast. And I guess we're here to compare films with their trailers, and did the film live up to what the trailer promised?
It's a podcast about expectations.
And
Whether they
I
were
think,
met.
yeah, and if they were met, and also, I think the varying three opinions we will have as well. I think we'll all have different expectations from trailers and different reactions.
Yeah.
And I guess the best thing to do now is ask who would like to introduce the first film.
I wouldn't mind doing that if no one has any objections.
Okay, should we listen to a bit of the trailer
Yeah,
first?
absolutely.
Okay, let's have a listen to a bit of the trailer for...
Matt, what movie is it?
We're going to be talking about 1917.
Roll it.
You have a brother in the 2nd Battalion.
Yes, sir.
They're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you fail, it will be a massacre.
We've got orders to cross here.
That is the German front line.
If we're not clever about this, no one will get to your brother. I will.
Oh.
Very dramatic, isn't it?
I only watched that trailer for the first time today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You didn't see the trailer at all before you saw the film?
I really didn't get opportunity to.
Because you were very excited for the film.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
No,
I thought you were.
I happened upon this film. I
Okay.
did. A friend of mine got free early screening tickets. I mean, like really early. We're talking maybe November, and I hadn't had a chance to sit down and watch that trailer. So I went into that movie absolutely blind. The only thing I knew about this movie, and it was like word of mouth sort of thing, that it was a one shot.
You don't get that from any of the trailers, do you?
No,
That it's a
And
one-shot
it's
film.
funny that you say that you knew that going in, because I think you told me about that, because I'd seen the trailer and thought this is just a standard, sort of cut standard war film. And it wasn't until you mentioned that I thought, oh, really? It's going to be a continuous shot?
Yeah.
Because I know Sam Mendes did that at the beginning of Spectre, so I knew he'd done little bits of it, but not for a whole film. That sort of struck me as a weird thing to do, especially in a war film, because I thought, how can you cut action and get pacing if it's done as a continuous shot? So having seen the trailer, I assumed that it would maybe sections would be continuous shot, but not the whole thing.
I think that trailer actually does sort of undersell that cinematography aspect of it as well.
I think so.
In that it doesn't advertise the fact that it is one shot, and it doesn't advertise how good of a one-shot film
But
this is.
it's funny you say that, actually, because I think if we think about the end of that trailer, which I think is the title of the film, which you can see the vision through it and the rest of it's black, of him running along the trench, that kind of alludes to it, but when you watch the trailer, you don't pick up on it. It's only when you go back and you go, oh, okay, so that's kind of sort of setting up this idea of, everything's going to be done in real time kind of thing, like these long shots and everything.
There's something about a one-shot film that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Do you sort of get that, you're like, oh, can they pull it off?
Birdman
But
made me
they're releasing
nervous.
it as a film, so obviously they have pulled it off. But I think maybe, am I nervous that I'm going to get bored because it's a one shot?
I understand where you're coming from, and I think that's just the climate we're sort of in at the moment. Like, one-shot films have sort of been, I don't want to say overdone, but it's not a new concept.
No.
Like, it's been done a lot.
I think that the most, other than 1917, the other film that really springs to mind that did it successfully was Birdman, and that's done as a continuous shot. And I remember thinking that one worked because it was on such a small scale.
Yeah.
So when this came along and I heard that it was a continuous shot, I thought, how can you do such an epic film but not cut?
Because the scale of this film is immense.
It is. There's a lot of travelling.
I don't want to jump ahead in the discussion at all, but I do want to touch on that. Do you think the draw card for this film was the scale and one shot of it, or was it the actual Oscars sort of draw card that actually drew audiences to this film?
Because it does have, the Sam Mendes, the Roger Deakins involved. Like, these are all sort of Oscar names now.
So the director was...
Sam Mendes, and originally he got his big break, I think it's fair to say, from American Beauty, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is a great film. And then he's sort of gone on and he's formed a partnership with Roger Deakins, who's a cinematographer, and they've done quite a bit of work together including Skyfall. And this trailer actually makes a huge point of selling the fact that this is the same director as Skyfall. And I think, again, it's coming...
Not Spectre.
not Spectre, but that's another conversation. But I think it's interesting that this trailer, which we heard at the beginning of this, it sort of has the whole story in the trailer at the beginning.
It does. It condenses it within,
that's
30 seconds.
That's the entirety of the story. There's no twist or anything. There's nothing really like that. It's just they're going to deliver this message to save this brother character from sort of falling into a trap. So I feel like the trailer was, like you say, trying to sell us on this idea. It's got all this huge talent behind it. And also a couple of actors in it, like Colin Firth, who's in the trailer, and I think Benedict Cumberbatch is in the trailer as well.
Big names that are only in it like 5 minutes at most.
I think, they are not the feature characters in the film at all. And, I mean, if you thinking about, I think, there were 3 trailers released for this. I'm not sure how they differed much.
I know
one
exposition. I know one made a big point out of the plane crash. That was like the feature of that trailer from memory.
The first one really stuck out because it was this wonderful transition from that big one shot along the trenches into the actual title card.
Yeah.
Which I think is sort of now entering internet culture as well. I've seen a SpongeBob trailer with that done as well.
Which is very good.
The big buzz around this film was that it was one shot. That's what everybody was talking about, that it was done in this amazing one shot, and it is a technical, brilliant feat. Like, if you look at the behind the scenes, it's phenomenal how they achieved this.
That's the thing I think we should mention is they do pull it off incredibly well. I think like a lot of us, when I was sitting, I was trying to sort of lose myself in the film, but at times I was watching it going, okay, how have they done it? And I had to, for the most part, it's done well enough that you don't find yourself falling into that trap. You can just sit there and let it happen.
Yep.
And I think that's when you know it's working, is when you're not looking for the trick. You just let it impress you. You know, you lose yourself into it.
Do you think that if you had only just watched the trailers and not read about it at all, that you would know that this film was one shot?
I don't think so. I certainly didn't from the first trailer. Like I said, I didn't think it would be done
Definitely
that way.
not.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think the environments within those trailers change enough. Like, you can see daytime, you can see nighttime. You'd never ever go, I'm definitely certain this is a one shot film. You'd always assume to yourself, well, they've definitely done some cuts along.
And I think the brilliant thing about it as well is I think the film is hoping that you go into it not knowing. Because the way it starts, it's that close up of them at the tree, and then they very gradually go into the trench, and then you sort of, if you didn't know going in, you wouldn't realize initially that it was going to not cut. It's not until I think they get to the base of like this ramp going down into the trench, and then the camera just pivots around them as opposed to cutting. You go, okay, so we're still rolling on this seemingly one take. Yeah. And then it just keeps going, and it gets more and more impressive as essentially they descend into this battleground from this serene environment into this sort of hellish one, and you go, that's all appears to be no cuts in there at all.
Yeah.
As someone who has watched plenty of film and studied film as well, you sort of go, okay, I went in knowing that it's one shot, but I know that it's they are very cleverly stitching shots together. Yeah. And I did find myself looking at it and going, I reckon that was a cut.
Yeah.
Oh, I reckon that was a cut.
There was one where he gets into the back of that truck, and again, it was one of those moments where I didn't want to fall into the trap of trying to pick it apart. I was like, I'm sure there's a cut in there somewhere as it goes behind someone.
I definitely wasn't taken out of the experience looking for those cuts. I sort of enjoyed myself going, oh yeah, I picked that. I picked that as well. It definitely didn't take away from the experience. I appreciated where they cut and why they had to cut there as well. I definitely didn't think it didn't take me out of the experience. No, and I think that's more on the shoulders of Roger Deakins than anyone in this film. Oh
yeah, absolutely.
He's done an amazing job with this.
Yeah,
and the good comparison is probably Birdman.
Yeah.
In that I always found the one shot in Birdman to be a lot more shaky. Probably
it's much easier to pick apart. That's for sure.
Is Birdman legitimately one shot, or is it spliced together like 90?
It's definitely spliced together.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
But I feel like it was more methodical in this film.
More seamless for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're outdoors for most of it. Like they can't in Birdman they can hide behind corridors and stuff, and there are a lot of people moving around you can cut on and sort of disguise it. In this one, because for the most part you're in such wide open spaces, you have to be much more. I'm assuming they had to be much more clever about the whole thing. I wasn't there, obviously.
I feel like in Birdman it was a case of the cinematographer going, I need to capture this action on film. I might not be in the right exact place, but as long as I get these two characters interacting in such a way, I've done my job. I feel like with this film, though, it was Roger Deakins. he had this script in front of him, and he's gone, okay, these are the shots I want to get. These are the specific cinematography shots that I want to get, and this is how we're going to transition to each shot as well.
It's definitely much more... I don't want to do a disservice to Birdman, but I feel like this was much more choreographed. And I think it has, because, I mean, there are explosions going off, and stunts happening and all that kind of thing. And it's inevitable at some point that those actors are replaced with stuntmen at some point to do some of the stuff they're doing. And they've just managed to seamlessly put that together, and you just, either through face replacement afterwards, it at least appears to be the same person.
Which is another thing I wanted to touch on. I didn't see a lot of green screen in the making of videos as well.
I don't know if there was there?
I don't think there is. I reckon they just sort of went to a farmer in Europe somewhere and said, can we use your farm for however long?
I mean, there's definitely CGI.
Yeah.
But it is so well hidden amongst all of that practical effect that it doesn't matter.
I was watching a behind-the-scenes special effects reel, and in the town towards the end of the film when it's nighttime, and in that town is that sequence where he's going towards the church and the Germans coming towards him, is that whole church is not there.
That's right.
That's all CG.
Right.
And I just assumed it was real because it looks so... The lighting is done so well around it. And
which they used a very similar trick from Skyfall.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of lighting rig up, which is one of the most amazing shots in that film,
is.
which also stands out so much in this film. The point, Matthew, that you touched on about it being nighttime, of course, they leave. The start of the film starts during the daytime. And I guess you could talk about one very obvious cut that does appear during the film, which doesn't hide itself. It serves its purpose within the story. Without giving too much away, it is used...
It's justified.
Well, it's justified to pass time.
And at the same time, actually, talking about justification, it's very justified. I thought the film being a continuous shot would be a gimmick, almost, sort of like, like I said, Sam Mendes had kind of done this at the beginning of Spectre. Now he's going, maybe I could do a whole film like this. But then when you think about the plot of this film, and it's literally a race against time, I don't think unlike Birdman, I've never seen a film where it makes so much sense for it to be a continuous shot right up until that moment we discussed. That you sort of go, that makes sense as to why they would... Like, I can't imagine now them doing it any other way.
Definitely, I mean, the main antagonist in the film is time.
Yeah.
By having that clear cut which advances time, it makes that deadline for the main character... What's his name? What's the main character's name?
I don't know. It's George McKay that plays him, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lance Corporal Will Schofield.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And his offsider is Thomas Blake.
So for them to get to the end of the film that advances time so well, that I guess the only cut is used so creatively and...
Yeah. And it also then precedes what I think some of the most gorgeous lighting I think I've ever seen in a film.
I did want to talk about that, is Thomas Newman's score in this film.
Yes.
They're frequent collaborators as well, aren't they?
They are, yeah. He's done, probably the last 5 Sam Mendes films, I think. Yeah. He's done a few.
Just that nighttime scene of running through the burning city with the flares, which were legitimate lighting. They used flares.
It was real.
And I think it's sort of fair to say at the moment that we are sort of building a general feeling around this film that we all did really enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I did, yes.
Well, you really do feel like you've gone on the journey with these characters. And it's one of those films that when I was driving home, it was one of the ones that just stay with you and you can't help but think about over and over again. For hours after you've seen it, it really stays with you. Because I think you feel so intimately... It's sort of a way I was thinking about the camera at one point is sort of like the camera is actually the third person. It's like it's almost there are 3 of them going on this journey and you're the third person. And you really feel like you've been there with them. It's really, really effective.
And you never really have a point where you can see something that the character can't.
Yeah.
So
you're there with them.
Yeah, that's right. The camera will show you a risk or something that is going to affect our main character.
There's definitely a reason he won the Academy Award. Like every shot in that is just so well precise and set up.
Well, even in dialogue scenes, he's been able to go in for your wide shots, and he gets the close-ups and then reverse shots as well without cutting. How do you get reverse shots without cutting in a conversation? Like they've choreographed it so well that it's so seamless that you get one half the conversation from someone's point of view and then someone else's, and it's
they spent 4 months practicing this film before they actually shot it.
Could believe it. Because they didn't fall into the trap of just doing all dialogue scenes as wide shots to get everyone in. It's that you go in for the close-ups, and they've successfully pulled that off.
Talking about Oscar nominations and wins, they won the... Was it cinematography?
They definitely got cinematography.
Yeah. I didn't really pay attention to this, but I didn't realize it got best visual effects, and it was up against Endgame, The Irishman, Lion King, and Rise of Skywalker. I mean, if there was a film I thought was going to get it, I thought it would be Endgame.
I actually would have thought Lion King, to be honest. It's a different conversation as to whether it works, but the CGI in The Lion King really looks real for a lot of it, which is quite impressive. But then again, talking about sort of the fact that it's such a simple thing, but the fact that I 100% believed that church was real. Mm-hmm. And then when I found out that it was an effect, I went, no, surely not. So maybe it does deserve the win because it fooled me.
I mean, when you think about it, if you go, well, I didn't think there was any CGI in it, well, then okay, then it's done a good job of it then. Because Endgame definitely had CGI that you knew about. Lion King was entirely CGI.
Yeah. Nothing in Rise of Skywalker was real.
Even its existence as a film.
Not even the interest in that film.
Matthew, didn't you like Rise of Skywalker?
This is, I think, a different podcast, but I'll just say that I walked out of Rise of Skywalker, I enjoyed it. There were things wrong with it, but I enjoyed it. And I saw it a couple of times in the cinema. I enjoyed it.
I have a question, and it's a broader question, and it has more to do with Academy Awards than anything. But what I am finding is that this film won 3 really quite important technical awards, but it didn't get a Best Picture, it didn't get, a Best Director. No actors were nominated for it, I don't believe.
No.
No, I don't think they were, actually.
So my question is, does this film deserve to be on the Best Picture list?
That's a good question.
Is a purely technically wonderful film, does that deserve to be on the Best Picture nomination list?
I guess, does it come down to story?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, thinking about it, I don't know if it's necessarily story, but I know that I definitely walked out of it feeling quite moved by it.
Oh,
and maybe that, depending on other people's sort of opinion, I mean, it's very subjective, but I feel like if a film can do that to you, where you completely invested in it and you walk out of it going, that was incredible, then maybe it is a really, really good film. Maybe that's all it needs.
I certainly had a couple of times, certainly around the middle of the film, but the nighttime scene and the third act of the film, where I literally sunk in my chair with my hands on my head. Just like, oh my God. And that was the second time I saw the film.
Yeah.
Because I have seen it twice, because the first time was such a poor experience. Because I know, Matthew, you talked about seeing it twice. Steve, you've only seen it once?
I've seen it once, yeah.
Yeah. First time we saw it, I mean, we could do a whole other episode on cinema etiquette.
Oh, yeah.
But my word, I don't know what is going on with society these days, but who talks and giggles and burps through a film like this? I'll tell you, the people sitting next to us, and it completely took me out of the film multiple times throughout the film.
Those people must have been really bad for you to have had to go back and watch it a second time.
And I am glad. Oh yeah, I mean, we talk about it. It's a single shot film, so you're so invested heavily and you're deep in it, and you just get pulled out by, unfortunately, what is, just part of going to the cinema is that you get stuck next to people. You have to deal with people, which was kind of disappointing. So I was very glad that I went and saw it again on a much bigger screen with much better sound. And this time I feel like, even though I knew what was coming, there were moments in the film where I thought, oh, maybe it won't happen this time. This sad thing that I know is about to happen, or this dangerous thing they're about to go through. Maybe they'll be okay this time. No one will get hurt.
And that's the thing, the fact that you were really egging them on the second time round.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're not stupid. The film's not going to change. The fact that it was able to create that feeling, I think, is very impressive for a film to be able to achieve that.
Was there anything to pick up a second time around? I feel like I came out of it and I'd enjoyed a full-rounded experience.
I think maybe some of the dialogue. I picked up some of the differences, some of the bits of dialogue that I'd missed the first time.
Yeah, I definitely allowed myself to sort of get a little bit, sort of look, not so much focus on what was happening, sort of the main focus in the film, maybe go, oh, what's happening over there? Like, what have they done lighting-wise over there? And be a little more technical in looking at it. And that's just my own personal preference, obviously. I mean, I enjoyed the second time around maybe looking at it a little more technically and just sort of enjoying what they've created in terms of colour.
So would you say that this film is probably a decent... If you're looking to learn some of the behind-the-scenes craft, would this be a pretty good example of a film you could learn from?
I think, unfortunately, maybe it's a good thing, it keeps coming back to it, but for cinematography, I think absolutely. Yeah. Maybe not so much for acting. The performances are fantastic in the film, but I don't think it's a big acting film. as such.
It is a film of technical feats, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's not to diminish it at all. I don't want to make it sound like that's a negative thing.
But certainly, if you can look at it and go, okay, I can do something different with my camera, and you can have the most expensive camera in the world, but if you're shooting very uninteresting shots, no one's going to really care.
Well, and if you don't have the correct lights as well, that whole film, the amount of lighting and detail and rigging that must have gone into that just to make sure that
they had to wait for the sun mostly. Most of their time was being patient about when the sun was going to be correct.
I think a lot of the daytime stuff, and I'm sure they've done sky replacements, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the daytime stuff was shot with a lot of natural light.
Yeah.
Even in that circumstance, you've got to have like people.
Well, you got to have reflectors and stuff as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But because the camera is moving around so much, you can't rig up a giant RE light somewhere pointing at your actors. You've got to be creative with reflectors. Old school, what you learn first term of film school is how to use what you've got.
And I think that's another thing, sort of as a side note for me personally about this film, is I think it made me really excited about film. To sort of go, look what they've done. They've kind of done like an indie film, but with a massive budget.
So I guess if we could bring it back to, okay, we heard the trailer before. Did the film deliver what the trailer promised us?
I think they were really clever in, at least officially, they never announced it was going to be the one shot. So you look at the trailer in a world post Dunkirk and you go, great, this is another kind of Christopher Nolan style war survival film. I'm absolutely down. Roger Deakins is shooting it. Sam Mendes is directing from Skyfall. Fantastic. And then when you actually sit down to watch it, you go, you get that. But you also get this incredible journey that you're kind of invited along to go with them on, even if you don't want to be there for some of the really uncomfortable bits. And it's quite an emotionally exhaustive, in a good way, emotionally exhaustive film. So I think the trailer did a really good job at not overselling the film, but giving you a taste and going, cool, I'd like to see that. And then the film just knocks your socks off, I think.
Steve?
For me, coming into it in the reverse situation, having watched the film then the trailer, it is as advertised. I would advise anyone that hasn't actually seen this film and hasn't actually seen the trailer to forego the trailer altogether. Go see the movie, because it's a more complete experience. I feel like I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and that's because I wasn't looking at trailer footage and then trying to pick out the beats that are in that trailer. Like, for example, like the first trailer they released, they start off with the ending, like one of the ending shots.
It's a good point, actually, yeah.
It is.
It's the end of the film.
I mean, I didn't realize that shot was going to be in the film, and when you get to, 10 minutes out from the end, and what's his name, George is running along the trenches, that's an amazing shot.
And the scoring obviously fits it so well when the orchestra just...
The choreography, like he's falling down, he's getting back up, he's running along. I think that would have been spoiled if I actually had gone and seen the trailer first.
It's a good point you bring that up, because when that bit came along in the film, I went, oh, this is the bit from the trailer that I've been waiting for. So I did have that in the back of my mind when it did come along. Yeah, it would possibly would have been, like you say, more effective to go, oh my God, what this is happening kind of thing, without any prior knowledge of it.
I do appreciate the fact that they didn't go out and film specifically for the trailer. Like they anything that's in that movie is included in the trailer. You're not going to...
They don't misguide you at all with the trailer, do they? They go, this is the story, this is what you can expect. These guys have got to go stop this attack. What are the consequences? 1,600 people are going to die. It's a war film. Go and see it. And I think that's what was promised to us, and that's really what we got. And now, being that we are on Trailer Island, out of 5, let's go with coconuts this week.
All right. Okay.
Matthew, how many coconuts would you give 1917?
The film or the trailer?
I don't know.
Let's say the film, because the film's the final product, isn't it? Really?
The film is the final product.
Yeah, the trailer's just the gateway into
and
it.
I think that if the trailer was misguiding or did a poor job of executing what the film was, that can detract from your score.
I think so, and I think I have to admit, without sounding, I know it's the first episode, so I feel like this isn't going to set a bad precedent. We will be objective about things, but I have to give it 5 coconuts. I think, because I loved this movie.
I'm going to give it 4, and I'm going to tell you why. It's rewatchability.
It's a bit like Gravity, because Gravity never worked for me the second time round.
I think if I
get sweaty watching that film.
I just don't think there'll be a situation where I sit down and go, I want to watch 1917 again. It's a perfectly amazing film, but it's one of those films where I'm like, yeah, I probably won't. If I'm not forced to watch this again, I probably won't watch it again.
Okay.
I won't actively pursue a rewatch.
I think for me, I mean, if I were to sit down and watch it again, it would have to be big sound,
Yeah.
big screen. If it was just sort of a standard viewing, like you would watch another film maybe on an afternoon, I'd probably go, oh no, I want to do this properly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this I'll make an evening out of it film.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know for me in terms of rewatchability is that I loved it the second time. I'm pretty sure when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, just for me, I really connected with this film. I just really enjoyed everything that it did and how it told the story, despite my concerns about it being one shot and sort of going, oh, it makes me nervous. How are they going to do it? They did it so well
Yeah.
that for me, I'm going to give it 5 as well. So 14 out of 15
It's not bad.
is not bad.
Not bad at all.
I think it's a good way to start.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask, I was just surfing Sam Mendes' pages,
His pages.
and he doesn't have a project in the works at the moment.
Doesn't he? Okay.
Nothing announced, at least.
Yeah, he does do a lot of theatre work as well. I know
Oh.
after Skyfall he went in, I think he did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in London.
All right.
And then that's what, he had a break from film and that's why he was able to be convinced to come back for Spectre. So maybe he's doing some theatre work now, I'm not sure.
Well, I'd like to, like, he's definitely, like, one of the most solid working directors we've got going
And
around
in
at the moment.
recent years he's definitely like sort of stepped up in terms of just the scale of his productions.
I'd be tired too after making a film like that.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can't imagine it was easy to make.
The planning that went into that movie is just ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
14 out of 15.
episode.
14 out of 15 coconuts. Thanks for listening. You can visit us on our website at trailerisland.com.au. Find us on Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts. Is that right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far. I'm sure we'll add more as they come along. Visit our Facebook page, search for Trailer Island Podcast. You can send us an email via the website or Facebook, and if you've got a suggestion, we'll definitely act on it. And of course, there is a Twitter.
Yeah, at Island Trailer, because Trailer Island was already taken.
Oh, we're going to have to find someone and deal with them.
Yeah.
We'll have to sort that out at
That
some
is
point.
unacceptable. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I've been Alex,
I'm Matthew.
And I'm Steve.
and we'll see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Trailer Island.